We have progressed from machine learning system building to automated machine learning system building. Gone are the days where we build a system by thinking up ideas. In the past, 15 or so years ago, I spent about 8 months building one Russell 2000 system. It was a great system. But then I built S&P 500 systems with GSB. That was easy and fast. S&P 500 is an easy market to build systems on with GSB. Not a lot you need to know if you're trend following. Counter trend or retracement, however, is more complex. Then I looked at the crude oil market. This took me about 9 months to learn with what worked well on GSB and crude oil. Every market seems to have its own unique nuances. I'm now on gold, which is a really lucrative market right now. Gold has taken me about 3 weeks to master. Incredibly fast compared to crude oil. Gold also has increasing volatility, while other markets do not. Most of the time is spent finding the nuances of each and every market. Once these are found, system building is really fast in human and CPU time. Now I got 5 uncorrelated gold systems in 2 days. So much faster than 8 or 9 months to build one system. Please take a moment to read the disclaimer. Why I achieved results so much faster with gold is because of what I learned on crude oil and because of GSB automation, which has completely automated the build process for me. At a high level of what this video will cover, we're going to show how GSB automation is used to build gold trading systems. We're going to show end result of tradable systems and high level of the steps that are needed to get there. The low level of what we're going to do with GSB automation is in part 2. We're going to cover the foundation, which is get a benchmark of something that works and make one change at a time to try and improve that benchmark. We do this with the GSB 1 or 2 pass indicator method. If you want speed and you're not building final systems, a 1 pass method is going to be significantly faster. But when it comes to your final build, you want to have a 2 pass method. What that is choosing the indicators that we know work best on a market, and GSB can automatically do this. Selecting the best indicators that work well on your chosen market by themselves gives you a dramatic boost in the performance you get when you use the same indicators and exclude the indicators that didn't work well in your trading systems. The results on what secondary filters work were absolutely amazing in the fact that completely not what you would expect, and I'm going to show that in greater depth later. The session time for gold, there are numerous session times and results on each session time can be significantly different. We're going to show the power of the GSB community. What was accomplished with gold could not be accomplished with one person, and numerous people contributed an input to what worked on gold, particularly Bruce, and many people contributed CPU power to this project. Those who contributed to this project also got the results of the research of this project, which was a huge amount of work, but it was a mutually beneficial project for everyone who contributed. I'm also going to show the Visual Basic Excel spreadsheet, and this compiles all the results from CSV, output of GSB, into something that's human readable and all compiled with all the maths of the various tests combined. That makes it very fast and easy for you to interpret the results. To understand this video properly, you're going to have a look at a benchmark, which is covered in the crude oil video shown here and in the documentation on methodology. Basically, you make a benchmark of what works, and then you tweak one thing at a time to see how that improves the top 250 or 300 systems of 50,000. This gives you certainty that your little tweak makes a difference over many systems with many indicators and many parameters. This is an example of the output of the Excel spreadsheet. 4 tests were done on every time frame here, and we had 3 out of sample periods of called B and C and D, and we look at the results of each period, and we're also looking at the amount of tradable systems that were put into favourites B. I'll cover this in more detail later on. What you can see here is that the highest BCD output was on the session time of 2:30 to 12:30, followed closely by 3:30 and 3 o'clock start, and the 6:30, 6 o'clock region was on the bottom end of the spectrum. And again, we'll go much more in depth in this in other videos later. If we skipped straight to the end of this entire process, we would see 300 systems in favourites A and 20 systems in favourite B in this example. Once we have a good benchmark, it's the systems in favourite B we consider for live trading. Here we have a curve that's a bit flat, and the parameters have changed of late, which is no surprise, just like in 2008 global financial crisis. What happened in 2008 is there was so much profitability, if you walk forwarded systems using that data, it would curve fit to a high volatility environment and be terrible after the high volatility environment was gone. But I can tell the parameters have changed of late, as the yellow curve is not parallel to the brown curve in the last two periods. The anchored parameter stability score is 0, which is very bad. It means there's been a severe change in the parameters of late, although the rolling parameter stability course score is quite good. I have an emphasis more on the anchored stability score than the rolling. The overall stats of this entire group of systems wasn't great, and this was just an early test to see if my week or so of the foundation on gold might produce a good system. I actually ended up live trading the system, however. If we had no walk forward test, you could be tempted to trade the system, apart from the fact that it's a bit flat in two periods. But you also need to factor in there was no slippage in commission, which will make these curves look somewhat worse. This is the next system out of the top 20. You can see here the final parameters and the system GSB produced are identical. This is not common and nice if it happens. The lines are parallel for the last 3 periods. They're exactly parallel. The curves slope upward in 7 out of 10 runs. We'd like this to be more, but gold, like any other market, has its flat spots. This is a system that I traded live, even though my work on gold was far from complete. We had 20 systems in favourite B, but with more recent setups I'm getting over 100 systems. We right-click the group of systems and put them into their families. Now a family is basically a system that has the same indicators in it, but it might have different parameters, for example, and we count that as one entire family of systems. This is covered more in the documentation, but ultimately the bottom line is we had 7 different families here, and we're only going to take the families with numerous members in it. So for example, 9 and 5 members in family 1 and 2. What that means is, regardless of the parameters, we've got numerous tradable systems, and it implies the system is fairly robust and not sensitive to parameter change. All of this will be covered more in part 3 of this video. Right now I have a poor idea of how many good tradable systems we get out of favourites B, but I suspect it's going to be fairly easy to get systems to trade out of gold. Keep in mind I do all tests 4 times, so I have multiple groups of favourite B to look into. You can see why the curves are parallel in the last 3 sessions. Rock solid parameter stability achieved in the last 4 runs. I ended up spending a lot of time on the system. I don't normally do this, but because it was the first gold system, I thought I'd better check this thoroughly, and I manually optimized every input one at a time, then as a group, and I was happy with the end result. I optimized this entire system using Enhanced Walk Forward Optimizer Pro. I don't do this often, but I wanted to check if my 2 or 3 weeks of work into gold was a waste of time or if it was going to give me value. I'd like to explain something on parameter stability, one of the many reasons I value it. Here is a mythical trading system using a mythical index of the amount of chickens eaten today and RSI. Now RSI we know well and we know it works in contexts, and I don't expect my mythical index of the amount of chickens eaten today to be significantly useful in trading. So if we look at that trading system, if the amount of chickens eaten today is basically noise and irrelevant, you are not going to get stability in parameters in value X, which is the moving average on the amount of chickens eaten today, and the weighting. You're also not going to get stability of parameters. Or you might even get a weight of 0, which basically nulls the amount of chickens eaten today. The other bias that stability in parameters gives you is you're more likely to achieve it with a system with less parameters. So that's also going to indirectly bias you to a simple system more than a complex system. While I'm not finished on working out the best foundation of how to trade gold, I'm confident enough to trade 5 E-mini contracts. And that paid off really well, as the first day I traded I made about 5 times $1,600 per contract when I got all my gold systems live. One trade, however, good or bad, means nothing in the long term, however. Consecutive losers are what tend to kill you, and that can happen on a good system, and so much more on a bad system. I feel I've got another week or so to go on the foundation of working out what trades best on gold. A few days later I got 22.7 points per contract on 2 systems and a loss of 1.7. This is not normal trading for gold. We just happen to be in a particularly volatile time, and it's a great time to be trading the metals. Sometimes traders who fail trading go out and teach others about trading. I'm not one of those people, and my accounts are at new highs in equity now. GSB was not built to make dollars selling software. It was built to help me make better and faster trading systems. The GSB client base are improving the product, sharing ideas, and giving me input of how to improve the product and how to improve my own trading. We have a value of collaboration, and that's something that mutually enhances everyone who's part of the GSB community. This is the end result of the system, including $24 slippage and commission. And these results are before I got the $1,600 trade on the system. When you're looking at trading any specific market, these are some of the most important things and first things you need to determine what works well on the specific market. Sometimes even there can be multiple bar intervals, for example 15 30-minute bars or 30-minute and daily bars, or combinations of those sorts of things. These are the sorts of things that we actually put into GSB automation to automate and test the results of. Now what session time to use is covered in a 6-minute video, Market Validation 1, but on gold that's just not so simple. If you look at the results here, the most obvious session time is 7:15. That's where above range, movement and volume are. The 7:15 bar end time is actually 7 AM start time, because the times shown are the close of the bar, not the open of the bar. The clue for the exit is at 12:30, where there's a big volume spike. However, 2 AM to 12:30 or around about that region could also be valid, but you would think less likely. I'll give some high-level background for what's coming next. This is the 1 or 2 pass indicator method, and we typically have a period of in-sample where every 80 days is truly in-sample, and every alternate 80 days we're actually using as out-of-sample, and we're seeing how the indicators perform in these 80 days out of sample. Now in the 2 periods to the right, they become our out of sample period, but in all this testing that we're doing on gold, we actually have 3 individual years of out of sample results. The dates we used on gold vary from the one in the graphical image, which is what we used on crude oil. This again is oversimplified GSB architecture, but we're also showing different entry types. There are more entry types than what we show here, but these are the main ones we use. So you can see compare 1 is just if the result is greater than 0. Compare 2 is if there is 2 consecutive results greater than 0. And then cross, where we actually have a crossover of the result. And this is what we use in gold. The specific entry type varies from one market to another, and normally there is one entry type that is significantly better than any other entry type on the specific market. So I tried cross dual level entry type, and you can see that we had an average of 44 systems added into favourite B, and we had a BCD result, that's B plus C plus D result of 1531. Now on the cross entry we had 2169, which is higher, and we had 61 average trading systems into favourite B. If we look at compare 2, well, we had a average of only 932 and only 29 systems into favourite B. And if you look at compare 1, we had 1524 BCD result and only an average of 28 systems added into favourite B. And that's testing across numerous time frames and doing 4 tests on each individual time frame, because the results from one test to another vary greatly. Here we use about 100 secondary filters and about 47 indicators, and we built 50,000 systems, 80 days in sample, and we look at the results 80 days out of sample. And we look at how often the out of sample results were in the top 1/3 versus the bottom 1/3 of the 50,000 systems, and we look at the ratio of the top and the bottom. Now what we see is close over lowest low is by far the top, followed by adaptive moving average, and our normal favourite close less previous close BPV is about 20th down the list. But this is what we would expect to be the best secondary filters used. So we look at our top one, close over lowest low. We look on the right here and we see that it's put 2 systems out of 300 into favourites B. Adaptive moving average, we see that it's put 3 systems into favourite B, and the BCD results are negative. Exponential average put 0 systems into favourite B. But you look at what worked best, and we can see close less previous close BPV put 100 systems into favourites B. The next best, which was a long way down, was close over previous close D, and that's almost the same thing. RSI also rated fairly well, but again it's only putting 17 systems into favourite B compared to 100 of close less previous close BPV. So I could give the analogy, it's a bit like my old car used to run on diesel and my wife's car runs on petrol. And we think, well, let's try everything all at the same time together and mix our petrol and our diesel together and put them in both cars. What you'll find is both cars won't actually run. And there are so many things in trading that you wrongly think you'll try them all together when you actually need to try them very much as individual things. One of the most interesting finds in gold, however, was that on a different session time, the secondary filters that were best were totally different, giving very different gold trading systems compared to the trading systems working on the 2 a.m. session time. And that particularly juicy information is what the contributors to this project and probably the purchasers of GSB automation will get in some sort of form as well. Those startling finds on additional secondary filters that actually work better than close minus close D on different session times would have been just about impossible to find without GSB automation and the benchmark. But it gives us quite certainty that there is a different way to trade gold than what we're seeing here. And different is always good because you want as much diversity in your trading systems as possible. And here you can see the correlation of the first 4 systems that I made using 2 different session times. And note the fact that all 4 of these systems are still using close minus close D BPV secondary filter, and I'm not using the secondary filters that I found later on work on the alternate session time. That means I'll get even greater diversity in gold trading systems in the next set of systems that I build. GSB is not just a software product. It's a community of traders. It's my belief and core value that one person cannot accomplish a lot in life compared to a group of people. One person doesn't have a monopoly on knowledge about trading. Collectively we can accomplish a lot more than individually. We can disagree, and the disagreements we have can make us stronger. We made an opt-in group where you donate CPU power to GSB. You get the results of the research on gold. Others, especially Bruce, added various tiny tweaks that ended up being really significant. This now has changed significantly how we build systems. But you can see here that we made about 47,000 systems in 7 minutes using 80 workers. So while you saw 80 GSB workers in the last screenshot, and there's typically about 12 or 14 workers per high-end machine, I was doing 4 tests in parallel using GSB automation. That's how I got my 4 tests on everything that I did. And I had about 300 workers in total to do all this testing. GSB automation can now split tasks multi-threaded across multiple managers in parallel in case you're one of the few people who have got lots of GSB workers. I had to do this because if you've got hundreds of workers, you can build 50,000 systems in about 5 minutes, and there could be 3 minutes of idle CPU time when all the statistics has been done on groups B, C, D, and that takes a few minutes, so you've got 40% of your CPU time being idle. So this test would take you roughly, extremely roughly, about an hour to do on one high-end machine, but depending on how much is free, you may also get some free cloud power from other GSB users. That actually varies greatly over time, it goes up and down a lot. But once the foundation of how to trade a market has been laid, there is very little work to be done, and it's very easy to find trading systems. Purchasers of GSB also get GSB Resource Manager, which gives you the maximum amount of workers that a machine can comfortably use according to your CPU and memory. And you can look on the top right on dashboard and you can see your own computers running on the cloud from any location, and also of the GSB collective user base as well. GSB is now very macro driven, which GSB automation uses, and in our benchmark we had 4 identical tests of 8 session times. So there's 32 outputs, and you're getting the results of the indicators used, the amount of systems into favourites B, your performance metrics in periods B, C, D, and the Excel spreadsheet will couple all of these together. I'll show you how that works. You select the input file, which is already open from a minute ago, and then you click OK. Then this gives you a summary where you can see up the top is all sorted by session 6:30 to 12:30, and there's 4 sheets going down. Then to the right you can see 6 o'clock to 12:30, and there's 4 of those going down. And then you get the summary, which is the benchmark table which I've shown you previously. This is all you need to know about purchasing GSB automation. You're not only buying a tool that will save a phenomenal amount of time, because anything in GSB can be done without automation, but the amount of time it takes to drive GSB in comparison to having automation makes a phenomenal difference. Here you can have your computers running 24/7, constantly going from one test to another, and you're also contributing to future development of GSB. It's not a cheap product to make, but it's a very powerful product, and a product I'm very excited about. What's coming up in videos is part 2, where I'm going to show in great detail the things that GSB automation can do and how to operate and drive it. In part 3, we're going to look at numerous examples of getting the trading systems we want out of Favourite B and evaluating, are these good enough to trade. I'll now give a brief demo of what GSB automation looks like running, the commands that I'm going to run to it. I'm going to move the secondary filter, and I'm only using one secondary filter, but that saves me having to modify the configuration inside the GSB manager. I'm going to move the session time, and we're going to do a number of those. I'll move the entry mode to cross, which again saves me worrying about what it is in the manager. I'm going to do a 1-pass indicator build. If I want to do 2-pass, I would just go green like that, and so it will do green, green build. The session times that I'm running, I've chosen 2 o'clock, 2:30, 3 o'clock, 6:30 and 7 o'clock. So this is going to run 5 managers with different session times on each, and it's going to do the indicator 1 pass on each of those session times. The macros it's going to run is it's going to look for a minimum of 4 indicators that are green. If there were less than that, it would force it to 4. You can see that the entry mode I've set to is cross. The secondary filter I've set to my default close less previous close day BPV. So to run it, I just hit start, and then you're going to see the commands that automation will pass. If I want to run 4 identical copies, I would change this to a 4, and it could run 4 managers in parallel if I've got lots of workers, or I could run them in sequence. I've got default auto exit set to false. Now that means that the manager will stay open. I don't normally do that, but for this demo I'll let you see what the manager is actually doing in GSB. Now the manager's opened, and note I'm running 53 indicators. I'm running a few of the extra indicators that are for beta testers, but you'll normally get about 44 indicators, but there is actually about 110 or so indicators in GSB now. And the macro says start building systems, do a indicator testing of green only, and then it will save the indicators. So instead of running the 53 I've got there, it will save all the green ones for the next copy of GSB. So this is doing indicator building only, not building systems, or not trying to build systems. And so we're just trying to look at what indicators work best on gold using the session time and secondary filter that we have. It normally takes a couple of minutes for managers to come up, so you can see on the top right it says searching. And under reporting graph, when you have NS and WC clicked, you'll start to see the amount of workers and the amount of systems that are being used by the manager. And you can see our first few systems coming in. So what this is doing is building systems from 2007 to, I think it's 2017, every 80 days in sample. But what we see here appear in GSB is only the out of sample. So that's how we're testing what indicators are going to work. All of this is driven by macros, so it's not something I really need to worry about how it works, as long as you've got the macros set up beforehand. The machines that the manager's talking to. You can see them all running here. We can see the machines that I'm connected to. And thank you GSB user base for your contribution. It's a total of 29 computers, which has given me 389 workers. And if I go to the macro log, you can see that the macro is start building systems, then do the indicator testing, and you'll see that the 53 indicators there are going to reduce to very roughly 10 indicators, and then GSB will run again trying to build systems this time using those top 10 indicators that we know work on the market just by themselves. There we have it, 9 indicators were chosen, or 8 and a secondary filter, and these were the indicators that were chosen in this particular run. What's chosen each time will significantly vary from one time to another, and that's a good thing because it gives us greater diversity in systems. So now if we go back to automation, we can see that it's completed the first one pass choosing the best indicators, and it's given me an estimate of 1.6 hours till these tests are done. And now you can see a much more complex macro running. It's going to build systems, it's going to make your stats A, B, C, D, and then it's going to export it into the CSV file, which we load into the Visual Basic macro. The session time again, you can see it's 2 o'clock to 12:30, and that was set by GSB Automation. Thanks for watching and your continued support of the GSB community. Please like the YouTube video, tell others about GSB, and try GSB. There's a 14-day trial, and see you at the next video, part 2.